Let's take this conversation further with Hendrik Makanata, who is an education activist. Hendrik, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Like I started my conversation with Dr. McKinley there, the BELA Act requires the minister to draft regulations that will become the instruments through which this is implemented. Those regulations are not going to be ready by January 2025. That's in a few weeks when schools reopen. It could potentially become contentious when some schools feel that they can go ahead and implement an act for which they would have conjured up their own regulations and would have imagined up a way in which it could be implemented, however fair they think as an SGB that might be. To the extent that that potentially might happen, which parts of the Act, particularly clauses 4 and 5, do you believe does not need extensive regulatory consulting and regulatory frameworks for it to be implemented in its spirit?
Well, you'll recall that when it comes to admission policies, already schools had a way of, had their own policies. And now the Act empowers the HOD, as you may know, to either reverse or to reject a particular policy or to direct policy in that regard. So I think that when you look at clause 4 and 5, it will really require the norms and standards as well as the regulations. But what is confusing at the moment is that if you listen to what the minister has said this morning, she has indicated that by probably June 2025, after public consultation, we may be able to come up with norms and standards that can work properly. But the MEC in Gauteng said that they are ready to implement. So I think that government has got two confusing messages, something that I think must be clarified. Perhaps we know that the provinces are the ones which must implement, but there must be synergy in terms of what the minister says and what the provinces are saying. And at the moment, it looks like there is a clash in that regard.
Ordinarily, one would assume that that clash is political and perhaps even ideological. What needs to happen, according to your vantage point, to avoid any clashes in provincial and national governments' understanding of the spirit of the BELA Act?
I think that we know by now that the minister is the custodian of this particular law. She's the one who must take a lead. And I think that it will be nice if provinces can listen to what she's saying in terms of development of the norms and standards as well as the regulations, so that we all wait for those norms and standards before people can do their own things. If that does not happen, you may see a situation whereby learners continue to be excluded in some of the schools across the country, especially those in suburbs. It has been happening all along, where you find that there's a person who lives in a particular suburb, and they have to go all the way kilometers to go and look for a school for their child when there's actually a school just next to their home. And that has been happening simply because of the policies that exist, the admissions as well as the language policies. So we think that there must be a collaborative effort between all provinces, so that the minister, maybe first and foremost, she must be able to call the Council of Education Ministers to say, this is what we think the line of march should be in terms of what I've said today. And provinces should just be able to comply, so that when we say all learners must get access, it must be across the country and not necessarily in a specific province.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, the minister had submitted to the president, in fact, not that long ago, more than a week and a half ago at this point, had sent to the president a letter outlining counter proposals around the modalities of the BELA Act and what could be done in alternative to clauses 4 and 5 as it's envisioned in the BELA Act. And this was part of the ongoing consultation program. Now, while those documents and those submissions to the president have not made it into the public record, we don't know what they are, one can presume that they were the thoughts of the minister around different ways in which education can be made more transformative and inclusive outside of what is described in clauses 4 and 5. To the extent that the minister may have had a different understanding or a different appreciation for the objectives of transformation and inclusion, which is safe to assume given the political party she comes from and the position that has been made known by that political party. Can you trust that the minister will lead the regulation drafting process with speed and in earnest in a way that prioritizes inclusion and transformation, or are you doubtful?
Well, as it stands now, if you look at what the minister has said up to now, ever since she assumed office, she has said that whatever she does, she will be able to place the learner at the center of every development within the space of education. And even today, when I listened to her, she reiterated that learners must, take the center stage. And I have no doubt that, I have no reason to doubt her commitment to ensuring that at the end of the day, South African learners are able to study in a conducive environment for learning and teaching. Of course, we all know what the issues are. The main bone of contention has been the issue of mother tongue education as well as language policies, whereas there are those who feel that the mother tongue education might be scrapped in the long run. But I think it has been addressed. I think that the agreement that has been reached in terms of what we foresee coming, in terms of the regulations that are coming, mother tongue education should also be promoted. Because if you look at section 29, read with subsection 2 of the Constitution, it precisely indicates that where it is practical, mother tongue education should also carry on. But of course, that does not mean that learners should be excluded. Where the majority of learners prefer to be taught in English, that should also happen.
Yeah, the BELA Act also compels that grade R now be a formal part of the education system and a compulsory grade in schooling.
Yes.
That means the resources must be made available. Are you worried about the implementation of that?
Yes, of course. I don't think that by January 2025 we will have the necessary resources can be able to accommodate all the grade R learners. Of course, in some of the schools where the space, they will be able to accommodate, but we all know that in most of our township schools, we've been experiencing overcrowding for a number of years now. And so it's a good thing that the law now makes grade R to be compulsory, so meaning that 10 years of schooling now compulsory, but in terms of township schools as well as some of the rural schools, I think that government needs to find a way to ensure that they build more classrooms or rather build more schools with a view to accommodate the rising number of learners that we are foreseeing in terms of grade R.
Yeah, and just lastly, this is a bit of a parenthetical question. In her speech today, the minister had said that she will not allow anyone to weaponize the implementation of the BELA Act, particularly clauses 4 and 5, and she says that all mother tongue education languages are important. All 12 languages carry equal importance and status in South Africa. Who was that a warning shot at? Her political party and constituency, or the ANC and its constituencies?
Well, this issue of mother tongue education has divided, so let me just say, frankly, clause 4 and 5 have divided society for quite some time. Before the president could sign, you've had the ANC, the SABC and others saying the president must sign. Others were saying, please refer back clause 4 and 5 back to the National Assembly and so on. So I think I think only the minister can be able to fully answer that question. But I think it makes sense that once the law comes into effect, we must be able to put aside our political differences so that we can be able to focus on the learner. Because the primary objective here is to make sure that our learners, both black and white, are able to create a future for themselves. So, it should not be used as a political tool.
No, I was being mischievous by asking you that question. But of course, it was part of the contentious part of the minister's address. Hendrik, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. Really do appreciate it.